Vladimir Putin had an interesting statement about the invasion of Ukraine and the Western response as he perceives it. He brought somebody unexpected into the mix in his commentary. I'm a little sad that John isn't here to comment on this as a fellow nerd and Harry Potter lover himself. J.K. Rowling, a victim of Western cancel culture. And somehow that means that she has common cause with Vladimir Putin, I guess, according to at least him, although she refutes it later. We'll get into that. This just has to do with the fact that she has been openly transphobic. And Vladimir Putin says, she's a victim of cancel culture, just like Russia. Putin said that the Harry Potter author was canceled, quote, just because she didn't satisfy the demands of gender rights. He continued, they are now trying to cancel our country. I'm talking about the progressive discrimination of everything to do with Russia. Today, they're trying to cancel a whole 1,000-year culture, our people. They're banning Russian writers and books. Putin then compared cancel culture to Nazi persecution. We remember the footage when they were burning books. It is impossible to imagine such a thing in our country, and we are insured that we are insured against this thanks to our culture. So you can see him stealing from a lot of right-wing talking points here in the United States. I had this image of him just on his mega yacht, that $100 million yacht. He was worried about being seized. He was notoriously very isolated during COVID, just scrolling through Barry Weiss's Substack furiously, getting so riled up about cancel culture. But to me, it is interesting and a little scary here how the right wing seems to be borrowing from each other's narratives and talking points. Obviously, Russia is not being canceled. That's so silly. But J.K. Rowling did something questionable. The Russian government started an illegal and immoral war, an invasion in Ukraine. So they are getting criticized. And yet, the number one thing that right wingers love to do internationally is bask in their own aggrievement, their imagined aggrievement, because criticism apparently means persecution, and that's something that crosses borders. How beautiful.
Emma, you're absolutely right. This is the most right-wing thing I've ever seen. You go in, obliterate a country, you destroy people's homes and hospitals and schools, and you murder thousands of their civilians. And then when you're criticized for it, oh, now you're trying to cancel me? You're literally trying to cancel Ukraine by swallowing it up and making it part of Russia. It doesn't get any more cancel culture than that. You're trying to cancel an entire country. But oh, my feelings have been hurt. I am aggrieved. Me, poor right winger trying to murder you all. I am the real victim. So there's a really fascinating development here that now right wing has basically abandoned patriotism. And we showed you the pictures of the right wing wearing shirts saying, I'd rather be Russian than a Democrat. You see Tucker Carlson supporting Putin on a nightly basis, Steve Bannon, et cetera. We told you about this philosophy that they've adopted, Duginism, from a radical fascist Russian philosopher. Both Putin and Bannon and Tucker Carlson have praised this guy, and he believes in violence and going back to traditionalism through violence. And so there's like a global right-wing merger where they're saying, screw our own countries. We don't care about our own countries at all. We hate the libs so much that we're willing to betray anything for the right-wing cause. And yes, in our case, that means betraying democracy. And that's what they did on January 6th. And now one of the guys who did January 6th that was brought up on charges went and is hiding in Belarus. So it's an amazing readjusting of global politics at large, where nations now matter less than ideologies. And so Fox News and Putin, birds of a feather flocking together in this case. It is just amazing. That's a talking point he took straight off of Fox News. And by the way, I mean, of all the absurdities in this story, he says, oh yeah, can you believe these progressives that are for gender rights? One, what does that mean? Two, if that means we're in favor of both genders having rights or people having the right to choose their gender and then have human rights associated with that and being equal to everyone else no matter what their gender is, yeah, guilty as charged. We believe in equality. Obviously, Vladimir Putin doesn't, and he's trying to appeal to right-wingers in America, saying, oh, you gotta lift these sanctions, you gotta make sure that America betrays itself and supports us because the Ukrainians and the West are woke.
Yeah, I mean, just to piggyback really quickly off what you said there, Cenk, it is the abandonment of nationalism in favor of authoritarianism, and that is widespread among the right wing at this point.
Yeah, I think the Putin mentioning J.K. Rowling, it seems ridiculous, it's hilarious and horrifying, but it's really deliberate. Like, we have to imagine what happened in this meeting where they decided, yeah, we're going to talk about Harry Potter in a speech. Like, people probably sat down, and I like, Emma, you imagining Putin arriving at this idea. I did the same thing, and I picture Putin and his, cabinet just around a table, and they've got a whiteboard up, and they're like, okay, what do Americans like? And it says Harry Potter, Star Wars, cheeseburgers. They're like, what can we attack? And they're like, okay, my enemy's enemy wrote the beloved Harry Potter series, so let's leverage that. And in the same speech, we'll talk about burning books. It's like almost as if he's trying to scare people into thinking they're burning the Harry Potter books, and that folks in America will try and protect these books and side with Russia. But it's exactly that. They're trying to appeal to the right wing and splinter America's support of Ukraine's defense against Russia.
Well, he's trying to evoke the imagery from World War II and the Nazi imagery there, which is obviously creates a lot of painful memories for Russians. So this is a way for him to shore up the domestic front. They lost over 20 million people in World War II. That's why he pretends like this is a denazification project. And also it hides the ball because his government is currently arresting people who are protesting against the war. Talk about cancel culture, talk about suppression of free speech. The Russian police forces and authorities are literally stifling down on dissent in the news and in the streets of the many Russian people who we should not conflate what Putin is doing with the Russian people here, of the many Russian people who are speaking out against this. It's very difficult to do so in Russia.
Yeah, I mean, there's a great irony here when he's like, oh my God, they're burning books like the Nazis. You know who is burning books, including very literally Harry Potter? The right wing in Tennessee. We covered that story a couple of weeks ago. So the right wing are like, oh, can you believe cancel culture? Dave Rubin even wrote a book that had a title, Don't Burn This Book. And then the right wing goes and has a book burning party. We showed you, it looked exactly like the Nazi book burning, and they actually literally burned Harry Potter. And so, and look, Emma mentioned Barry Weiss, like the queen of cancel culture, meaning like complaining about cancel culture. She started her career and got famous by trying to get Palestinian professors fired for arguing for Palestinian human rights. The right wing just doesn't mind hypocrisy. So Putin is saying, now remember everybody, we're against the Nazis. That's why we want an authoritarian government that invades sovereign countries in Europe and takes away their sovereignty and then takes them as part of our glorious homeland. And then we will continue to expand until we have a 1,000-year empire. Like, right wingers look at that, whether it's in Russia or in America, and they're like, yeah, it makes sense to me.
Yeah, if there's one thing that Putin and the American right have in common, it's cognitive dissonance. And that's why they get along so well. That's why they agree on so much. That's why we have Tucker Carlson backing up Putin on the daily. It's insane.
And we should say that despite J.K. Rowling's vicious transphobia, and I mean, honestly, again, I grew up reading these books. It's painful to look back on how, honestly, her bad politics are reflected in the books in hindsight, but they come way more to the forefront when she's essentially bought into a right-wing propaganda project that Murdoch has undergone in the UK. The way that the CRT is being currently pushed as this existential, scary threat on right-wing news stations like Fox News in the United States, They've been doing that for a long time with trans people. Men are gonna dress up as women and sexually assault other women. Just vicious stuff that someone like J.K. Rowling has bought into. And by the way, be prepared, they're starting an all-out blitz to do that here in the United States as well. But here she is, she did disavow what Putin said. Critiques of Western cancel culture are probably not best made by those currently slaughtering civilians for the crime of resistance or who jail and poison their critics, hashtag I stand with Ukraine. So, that's something, at least in the context of Ukraine and Russia.
Yeah, no, it's good to see her putting out a great statement. Even if we disagree on some things, if she comes on the right side on this, that's good. And most importantly, because it basically pushes back against Russian propaganda and makes it less effective. So Rowling now significantly better than Fox News, where they do Russian propaganda 24/7. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.